Hello, BYWG Podcast Tribe. This is Dr. Noah. For the month of February 2019, we have a very special product of the month and an awesome book of the month as well. As a reminder, all the links for the product/supplement of the month and the book of the month will be listed in the show notes and iTunes, in our weekly newsletter, and on our website at www.beyondyourwildestgenes.com at the Listen Now tab. The special 10% discount code for the supplement of the month, Stress Rebalancer, is No More Stress. That's capital N-O, capital M-O-R-E, capital S-T-R-E-S-S. But more about this in a minute. Our book of the month is Beyond the Pill, a 30-day program to balance your hormones, reclaim your body, and reverse the dangerous side effects of the birth control pill by Dr. Jolene Brighton. I had the pleasure to interview the author, Dr. Brighton, and you'll be able to listen to this interview in the month of February, I believe February 11th. The product supplement of the month is Stress Rebalancer, one of the 8 brand new BYWG supplements. So many people, particularly in our offices, and we could see it online, are running busy lives and juggling so many things that eventually our systems can get overwhelmed. We call this sympathetic overload. But what about the chemistry of stress? Cortisol is the hormone produced under stress, and science has found some interesting answers to supplement this key stress challenge. One of the key ingredients in our BYWG Stress Rebalancer supplement is ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is a fascinating supplement or herb, with scientific studies supporting its benefits in managing the effects of stress. Lowered cortisol, the stress hormone, less anxiety, lowered blood pressure, improved testosterone levels in men, better concentration, and decreased inflammation markers for arthritis and heart health are also recorded in double-blind studies. This is just one of the 14 ingredients in our selected blend of adaptogens, herbs, vitamins, and amino acids to support health, reduce cortisol levels, and provide unique nutrients for cell function and protection. We could go on and on about this unique supplement, but you can read more about it at the links found at www.beyondyourwildestgenes.com. Remember, the 10% discount code for this very special supplement is No More Stress. That's capital N, lowercase o, capital M, lowercase O-R-E, capital S-T-R-E-S-S. Enjoy the upcoming podcast.
Hello and welcome back to Beyond Your Wildest Genes podcast. My name is Dr. Noah DeCoyer and I'm your co-host. Our guest is someone who's been a friend of ours for many, many years. We share many of the same passions, and she has been on the podcast at least 2 times before. Not a whole lot of guests can say that. So welcome back, Carla.
Thank you. Thank you, Noah.
So we, of course, encourage you to listen to our past interviews if you haven't already. But today we're going to focus in a little bit on type 1 diabetes, primarily in children, and round it off and finish off with Carla's new practitioner training at the end. But let me do Carla's bio first. Carla Atherton is a family health coach. She's the director of the Healthy Family Formula, host of the Children's and Teen Health Summit, author of the forthcoming book, Family Health Revolution, editor, book junkie, research geek, insatiable, curious mother of 3 grown, son of 20, almost grown daughter of 18, and a growing daughter age 15, one who has type 1 diabetes. Carla lives in rural Saskatchewan, Canada, where she works from a home office with families from all over the world on the reversal of chronic health conditions. Carla is on a revolutionary mission to empower families to transcend our new normal of ill health and chronic disease. Now, Carla, I have to ask you, it's in the single digits in weather by us, and that's cold for us. But my son asked, because I told him I was doing an interview, what temperature is it now in Fahrenheit, if you can give it, in Saskatchewan right now?
I don't know Fahrenheit. Okay. Well, so we got down to minus 35. So I should do like a quick Google search what that would be. But dang cold.
Yeah.
Let's just put it that way. So if anybody searches that up, it was minus 35 on Friday, and it was like, and get this, Noah, our heat was out.
Oh.
And we live on an acreage. No fun. It was, so we were like huddled in rooms with like, heater, dishes going and stuff like that but it was enough heat just to kind of keep us going. But it's not like we live in, like crazy cold weather all the time, but it was very cold. So tell your son that it was, if he'll do the math, whatever, it was minus 35. Okay. And then it warmed up to minus 10. So 25 degrees, it improved within a couple of days. So that's the extremes that we get here. It was crazy.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No thanks. I know. We're tough here, And then we get super hot in the summer. So, yeah. And congratulations. You pronounced Saskatchewan perfectly. Good job.
Thank you. I tried.
Yeah.
All righty.
Yeah, I know.
Alrighty. So, Carla, like I said, I've known you for a long time, probably more like 5 years. You spent at least the last 7 years becoming an expert in family wellness, aiming, as you say, to revolutionize family health. What started you on this mission?
Well, yeah, you say this 7 years, but really, like everybody says, okay, well, where do I start? Like birth, and so, really, this mission, I guess, began before that, but I didn't really know. It was just mostly with my own family. And I was always trying to, keep everybody healthy like everybody does, but I was a little more focused on health than I think the average person. And my focus was more on sort of like mental wellness and critical thinking. And, my university background just sort of got me on that mission to just read, research. And I loved it. I didn't love it in high school, I'll tell you that right now. But I loved it in university. I loved it in, when I chose to do it, it was my passion to just dig in wherever I went. So I homeschooled my kids actually because not necessarily anything political, but really because I wanted to. And it was so much fun. And we just explored and those aspects of health. And then my daughter was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, going on how long ago would it have been now? 7 years ago. So that's the February 2nd, actually. So the anniversary is coming up. And it was, I wouldn't say devastating for me necessarily, because what I do with a challenge is I just kind of dig right in and go, well, what are we going to do about this? Like, what do we learn about it? How do we improve? How do we make the best of things as they are now? And how do we change it for the future into what we actually want it to be? So I really just dug right in and, got organized. And, other people didn't. Some people, were feeling sorry for us. And I was like, well, why are you feeling sorry for us? We can handle this. And I didn't really, it took a long time of discovery and really getting into the science to really figure things out. Discovering functional medicine, using lifestyle practices to figure out actually really how to do this. And then also recognizing a lot of things that we were being told in the medical system, our current, standard of health, was that, well, this is a done deal. Things aren't going to get any better. This is the best you can do. It was more about coping rather than thriving. So there was just something wrong about that to me. And I spent a lot of years of times being frustrated with the help that I felt that I was not receiving. And a lot of people did try to help in the way they could, but I had to learn a whole new system, a whole new way of viewing health, moving it from reactionary, right, to responsiveness, to how do we figure these things out? So that's sort of our story. It sounds but it's more. It was. And it's not done yet. So that's what started me on this mission, right? And it's not just type 1 diabetes, where there are all kinds of other things that were a challenge for her and for our family. And, we've encountered many, many other things, including, in our family, including cancer, including, pandas, including, eating disorders and anemia and mental and mood disorders. And there's a lot of addiction in my broader family, and people that I know. So, it just sort of like, it sounds overwhelming, but really with the lens of functional medicine and lifestyle interventions, I really got a good handle on how to handle all of those things with a basic framework, which has been so enlightening for me and empowering for me as a parent, worrying about my kiddo,
Yeah, I've created a lens or framework for myself, and I think it's very similar to what what you teach as well. And I had one question in mind, but you mentioned something. You mentioned families. So why when you're working with anything, so it could be type 1, it doesn't matter what kind of disease or illness or chronic illness, acute illness, why is it more important always to work with the whole family as opposed to just the parents or the grandparents or the grandparents and the parents or just the kids? Why is it so important to have everybody involved?
You know what? No, I found that it's actually not just important, it's essential.
Right.
And the reason for that, again, going back to my roots, I was actually even really investigating quite deeply for no reason. I wasn't even taking a class in this, but the foster care system, and how, I kept thinking, isn't it better to get to the root and help those families rather than kind of like pull, sometimes there are emergency interventions, and don't get me wrong, but, pulling apart that family and then, working on this individual and that individual, and then, placing these children here, and, why not work on the family as a whole? So that kind of really stuck with me. It's sort of been something I thought about a lot. And then, when I became trained, I've done lots of trainings, at least 5 different health coaching trainings myself. And, with every single one, I came out of there going, they're not really teaching me what I need to know. I don't feel ready. I don't feel ready. I don't feel ready. I don't feel like I can really serve people. And then it just dawned on me that I needed to focus on the family, because it's not just the mom or this man, this dad, but as a man, right, or as a child, that is being affected by a health challenge. When one person isn't well, nobody in the family, it really is. Everybody's affected. And if one person gets well, the other people are affected as well. So, and then there's a whole community within the family. There's the support system of the family. So when you elevate one, it's like a rising tide lifts all boats, right? Like when you elevate the health of one, you elevate the health of the rest, but you need to focus on all of them. So then we'd have I have clients, come to me for one child, and I'm like, well, what about your other kids? And then you find out actually the status of the health and more clues when you know something about the whole family. For that one kid that seems like they have the most problems, you also avoid problems down the road. You work on relationship, and being sick is not easy. So we work on trauma, we work on, family, like strengthening family bonds, recognizing when a problem is actually like maybe physiological, that sort of turns into something that, is relationship, right? So maybe you have a child who is diagnosed with ADHD and they have this behavior, and everybody has just had it with this kid. And then when you unravel that, you can heal the relationship, because you're looking at the family as a whole, how they interact with the family, and also being able to separate out, what is actually what the causal factors are. So we have this whole system needs to work with the family. Also for cost, there are parents that are always doing, I don't know if you've seen Sophie's Choice. It's a horribly sad movie. And so there's this choice between saving one over the other, and how do parents make those choices? Well, I aim for my clients and people that I work with for never having to make that choice. We work on all your kids. If your children all have issues, we're going to do it all at the same time. And so I didn't feel like I was taught that. And so I learned how to do that from my own experience, from finding out what it was I was lacking and then filling up those voids. Also, I would suggest to readers, read The Shelter of Each Other by Mary Piper. The Shelter of Each Other. Even the title of the book is beautiful. And it's all about that, not separating ourselves. And sometimes people say you got to leave your family behind to get better. And sometimes there's a time when that needs to happen, if there's a lot of illness in that family that might be abusive or, that sort of thing. But many times, we can fix that family unit and really make a shift that is it's like a more sustainable, lasting recovery.
Boy, there's so much there. You know, I take care of children too, and recently I've had the opportunity to speak at some special needs events and adult special needs facilities and everything. And I'm looking at these people, and I've had some conversations with some of my parents who have one child who we would consider a healthy child, and one child who has some sort of diagnosis, whether it's ADD or autism. And I've just been asking them recently, like, how do you balance all of this? Because the one recent conversation I had, the one child who's autistic has 3 hours of additional services after school every day except for Wednesdays. So in my mind, I'm thinking, well, how much time are you giving the other child? You know, like, because I know I run my two kids around with my wife like lunatics all over the place, and I could see how difficult and challenging that is, and how crucial it is to kind of lock that stuff down and make time for certain people and have a community of help. It's just it's what you're doing and what you're speaking of is so important.
Yeah. Yeah, I really agree, Noah. And I think that, you know, and looking at all those things and being aware, you know, and really being open with the kids and teaching parents how to do that and what to pay attention to, like little things that you might not think about until it's already done, right? So years go by with this situation like you're talking about, and you've got one child that requires a lot of attention and the other one sort of, you know, it's like being the middle child, right? Like, you know, where am I? Do I matter in this family? Nobody cares about me. You know, and making sure to spend time with that child and discussing these things and say, look, I know it's taking a long time to do this, but what can we do together? And, you know, making sure that happens. Also, you know, those kids that aren't that are the normal, quote unquote, normal kids that don't have, you know, as to the extent of health challenges the other children do, they can tend to be the helpers too, the fixers. And then, you know, and like, that's not always good either. So, you know, yeah, it really is about balancing and helping the families through. And that's another aspect that I teach is this is huge. And we cannot forget about this piece of health, you know, especially when we're working with families who have children. Yeah.
So let me give you an easy test. This is the situation in my family, and I think it's easy. So I eat paleo, primal, fluctuate between keto. My wife is vegetarian who eats fish. My oldest son eats kind of the way I do, and my younger son is a horrible, just picky eater. And I'm cooking and I'm the prime cooker, and I'm cooking 14 different meals a day, and I I'm a pretty busy guy. So, you know, what do you say on when you're talking about food scenarios like that? What are some of your little tips and suggestions?
Okay, this is just totally struck me, but first have a sense of humor, because I really, if you get into this is hard, I don't like it, you're picky and just eat it, you know, that's just, and it sounds like you wouldn't do that, but you know, that just goes way down the wrong road. Just have a sense of humor. I like the kind of the buffet approach, you know, because we know that one size does not fit all with nutrition at all anymore. And there used to be a time where people say, well, you know, kids are just being picky, blah, blah, blah. Well, sometimes pickiness actually indicates certain things, you know, and sometimes it's when they actually, something isn't right for them. They're intuitively picking up on that, or it's something they're not used to. It's you know, there are certain sensory things that some kids have that they just don't like, mushy things like bananas, or, you know, or they gravitate toward things that, you know, give them a high, which, you know, we don't actually want. So sometimes, you know, gluten can make you you know, create gluteomorphines in the brain, and you're addicted, right? So it's just paying attention to all of these things. And then I again, like I was saying, the buffet kind of idea, you know, where we have options. So sometimes we don't make 2 different meals ever in our house. We never do. We try to make something that will work for everybody. But you know, if you have you know, let's say, you know, your wife only eats fish, and maybe not even all the time, so you always have lots of veggies. That works for you. You have something across the board that works for everybody. That will work for everybody. You know, lots of the veggie dishes. And then you have something on this side. You put the meat on the side, or the fish on the side, or you have something like a hot pot. You know, you know, you've got the broth and everybody puts in what they want, right? So, I mean, there are lots of ways to do that. I usually just make a meal that across the board works pretty good for everybody, which is usually vegetables, except for maybe the picky one. The picky child. That might be your challenge, is your picky child. And then you add, meat isn't necessarily doesn't have to be cooked in with everything. Same thing with bread, like gluten. If someone doesn't eat any gluten or grains, that never has to be part of the main dish. That can be, on the side. So that's how I work it out. Same thing with salads, like if there's certain things that are sensitivities or whatever, I kind of like, putting it in what everybody can have, and then this other stuff's on the side for the people who want it or who need it. How's that sound?
I love the humor. I love humor, because I think humor makes everything a little bit easier. But I actually really, that's basically what we do in our house, but I didn't put a name to it, so I really appreciate it, and I think it's great. The buffet approach, and that's definitely the way we function in our house.
Yeah.
I think that's because that's what I always have: salad and a bunch of vegetables and some sort of meat, or sometimes two meats in my refrigerator, and we take it out and put stuff together. And whether it's right or wrong, I use the microwave quite a bit to heat up stuff that I have that's ready and just about ready to prepare. So today I just did 12 sweet potatoes. So
Yeah, wow. Yeah, and then, and two, like doing cook-ups beforehand. I mean, that helps too. If you have the time, like on a Sunday, and everybody kind of all hands on deck, and everybody makes stuff for the week, and what do you like, and what do you want this, that works too, and it's kind of a nice bonding thing. It does take a little bit more time, but it does reduce time during the week, for that. But that's another little tip. And then also for the microwave, I haven't had a microwave in years, Noah. You can actually kick the microwave habit if you want, because I just use the oven. I don't even miss it, and it honestly, to me, it doesn't take any more time. Maybe I'm used to it, but I use the stove and I use the oven. And some people don't have one, but we don't even think. I don't even think about it anymore.
Yeah,
it's interesting, but I don't.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I love those suggestions. Thank you. So let's just focus.
Sure.
Let's turn our attention a little bit, because I know that you have a lot to say about this topic. Let's turn our attention a little bit to type 1 diabetes, particularly in children and teens. There's a lot missing in conventional medicine. There's just a lot missing, or maybe let me go as bold and say they're just flat out wrong, and the advice they give, it drives me crazy. So what are some of those things that you see and that you coach about and talk about most frequently?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad you said that, because I'm a little bit, of a rebel, rogue, revolutionary in my thinking about that as well, because I mean, not everybody's going to have the same experience that we had, but pretty much everybody I've spoken to has. So I don't know. So, I mean, and people that I work with, I'm part of a lot of different groups on Facebook. I read stuff that people are going through, and I contribute, and and the clients that I work with in my own experience, and then people in our community who, are, being cared for by the same community of practitioners in our community as well. So I really watched and learned and tried to figure out what is it that's going on here, what are we being told, and what do we actually really need to learn. Because this is a huge struggle. Like type 1 is not an easy road. And there's a lot of struggle that I see that is really unnecessary, to tell you the truth. And the advice, I'll tell you one thing. When we went into the hospital the first time, like I said, I got reading. I actually was watching the kid in the next bed, eating Fruit Loops, just newly diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, literally. And we were going into meetings with the dietitian or the nutritionist. I think she was a dietitian. And her advice, she didn't give us any advice. She told us how to read labels, like carbs, like this is how many carbs are in here. Okay, that's nice. And then how much do you dial up to cover those carbs? And gave us a bunch of pamphlets for McDonald's, a really popular donut place here in Canada called Tim Hortons. and a couple other fast food places. Assuming that we had a fast food diet and that we would want to know how many carbs were in each of those items. Like McNuggets would have so many carbs, and French fries would have this many carbs. This glazed donut would have, and nothing about actually the nutrition behind, really, generating a robust immune system and, a body that's going to work 10 years, 20 years down the road without the highs, the lows, the fluctuations, the hormonal shifts that happen in puberty that are going to be totally a mess, despite all of this stuff that we were being told was just, to me, I was just, my jaw was just like, what? Like just hitting the floor. And as soon as the endocrinologist who was in charge of the care of every kid the only pediatric endocrinologist within a 300-mile radius of our city, actually probably even longer or bigger radius, told me, and I said, well, what does glycemic index have to do with blood sugar control? And he said, nothing. So the rate of which your body will absorb sugar and it will go into the bloodstream has nothing to do with how well you can control your blood sugar. And I thought, okay, no, we're on our own. And hey, and I know this sounds like I'm complaining, but I am complaining. But we have to see the problems to discover the solutions and work together to make that happen and have better education for our parents, because I can't tell you how many people come to me and say, I'm frustrated. I don't know what to do. I have no support. I know there's something wrong with this, but I'm not sure what to do about it. And I think that's just wrong, because these kids end up with comorbidities. They end up with worsening conditions. They end up with other autoimmune conditions that can be actually prevented. So we don't actually know that. We're not taught these things. So I'm going to back up here, Noah. So specifically, what we were not being taught was to look for root causes. We were being taught that this was a done deal, and it didn't matter what happened. It was genetic. It was a luck of the draw. It was bad luck. And that's not true. And we know this to not be true in functional medicine. So we were not taught that. And so most people, not me, because I had an inkling at the beginning, but a lot of people just take that and say, that's it for us. And we're going to have to deal with the dawn phenomenon. We're going to have to, the honeymoon effect is going to, go away, and it's just going to be downhill from here. And that is not true. It doesn't have to be like that in any way. So looking for root causes, that's one thing that we need to be paying attention to. What happened? Because when we find out what happened to be the catalyst for this autoimmune response of the body, then we know what to stop, right? Like we know which factors that we can remove. So was it infection? Was it environmental? Was there exposure to chemicals? Was there exposure to like heavy metals? Was there a huge trauma in that child's life that disrupted the central nervous system? Was there, a food reactivity that was a contributing factor? There are several things, and there are many of them, but several categories of root causes that we have to look at when we're looking at the onset of autoimmunity in general, and not just type 1 diabetes. And that's important because when you have one autoimmune condition, like I said, you can develop another and another and another and another until you fix what's going on within the body. We were also not taught that the gut, we say gut, and that sounds very unscientific, but the GI tract, the gastrointestinal tract, the integrity of that is very important. And when there are holes in it, we have all kinds of problems with the immune system with hyperreactivity. So, and then that can become an autoimmune condition. So there were things like details, like the effects of the central nervous system on blood sugar control, how well you handle stress. And I don't mean just stress in life, but also bodily stressors, right? So poor nutrition, infection, that's huge, huge. Infection is it's a very big aspect. And issues like with specific food proteins like milk, or like specifically casein and wheat, so specifically gluten, but there are other gluten-containing proteins within wheat. And the bioindividuality of that child, And like I said, environmental triggers like even mold, and genetic SNPs, so specific single nucleotide polymorphisms on the genes of each child. That's important to know. So what's working well for detoxification or not so well? What's working well for methylation and not so well? And then food reactivity, like I was saying, and other comorbidities. So other conditions that can come along with type 1 because we're allowed to have more than one condition. So those are just a couple of the things. I don't want to overwhelm everybody, but when you can be organized and be able to have someone help you through all of this, discovering all those things would have really helped us in the beginning and help us exponentially now. And then like we were talking about the effects on the family, also the prospect of recovery. So Noah, I just want to say this is a really big deal for me, is that what we were never told and what we're missing is that hope of recovery. And it's not just empty hope, because it's not just something like, you just do that so you can get through the day. It's actually, there's real recovery that does happen, even with something like with type 1 diabetes. We do it all the time with Hashimoto's. We do it all the time with MS. We do it all the time with all kinds of autoimmune conditions. And I just say, why not type 1? And I'm thinking, and a lot of the issue is that it takes longer to regenerate beta cells in a pancreas than it does to regenerate, the GI tract. Those cells regenerate a lot faster. So you stop the attack and then you repair. So those things were missing. And the power of lifestyle medicine. Nobody told us that diet would be a key player in managing blood sugar, making sure you don't have any of those complications with diabetes. Nobody actually told us that. We sort of like lightly talked about out there, but nobody actually really sits down and says, this is the physiology, this is actually what's happening, and this is what you can do about it. Did I overwhelm everybody?
No, Carla, there's few things that frustrate me like type 1 diabetes does in my patient base, because I have patients that do wonderful, manage it perfectly, are athletic. You would never know, ever know. And then I have other patients who I love dearly, who manage it with medication and insulin and don't pay attention to their diet, and it just drives me insane. Some of it is their fault, and some of it is the lack of, or the simply wrong information they're constantly fed from. And you don't have to say, let me say it, from the American Diabetic Association, and it just drives me through the roof. So any information that's put out like you have, that you're working towards, is so important. It's so important to me, and it's so important to so many people, because it's the truth. It's accurate. And people just seem to forget that type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease too. They just seem to think that that kind of gets glossed over too. And you're right. If you have one autoimmune disease, because of root causes, you are very likely to develop another one. Well, who the hell wants two autoimmune diseases, let alone one?
Yeah. And you know what I think too, Noah, is that, and they often do. I mean, like celiac is like kissing cousins with type 1, and epilepsy is, another thing down the road from celiac, and it actually is caused by gluten many, many times. So there's so many things that connect, that if we can understand that, we can really help these kids. Like, we can really dig in and help them. And I think that the real problem with why people, it's not even necessarily education and the wrong information. It's that our thinking is that it's like a reaction, right? So we react to high blood sugars with insulin. More insulin, higher blood sugar, right? Like, so this is how we react. But we don't necessarily respond. And we don't necessarily, again, look to root causes to find out why this is going on. So, so we want like something like a quick fix, right? And so, I mean, and it's not like, I don't want to criticize parents in any way. But I want to look at like, okay, yeah, actually I'm looking for something to be fast, but I want to encourage people to slow down and say the faster isn't necessarily better. It's really just covering up the symptoms. And so, you hear these analogies all the time. It's like, like turning off the fire alarm when the house is burning down. And you don't want to do that. You turn off the engine light when the engine's, crapping out in the car. That's what we're doing when we're just sort of like surfacely, managing. That's why I hate the word managing the symptoms and not really getting to how to elevate and transcend this diagnosis. Because there is a lot of room for recovery, a lot that we are totally not in any way tapping into with conventional medicine.
Right. Now, you're doing your job in kind of, quote unquote, solving this problem, and you've created a program where you teach people to become family health coaches. Why don't we kind of round this off by just give us a little insight into this program and what people can expect?
Yeah, sure. I'm kind of old school. Okay, let's just put it that way. I mean, I am online all over the place, and I really enjoy being able to do things like this with you, Noah, and through the internet and being able to connect with people all over the world. And I actually really I've taken a lot of programs where I just do the plug and play. I just want to know the information. I don't want to have to commit to being somewhere at a certain amount of time. And, I just want to do it on my own time. I love that. But I also think there's such value in being there with your students. I love to teach. And my students teach me so much, and with the questions and the bantering and, and what comes of a gathering of brilliant people, it's amazing. There's nothing like it. So what I've done with my program is that, so first, it's a health coaching program, but what I do is teach people to be family health coaches. And so I teach them what we're talking about earlier on in this interview is about how to coach the whole family. So yes, we go through all of those different things that we go through with coaching in general, like health coaching with the functional perspective, using lifestyle interventions and holistic therapies. I don't teach people how to use medications. That's not in my wheelhouse. But I do teach people how to work with other, people who may be on medications and perhaps working with other professionals to get them off of them. But our goal is really to get to the root causes. So my lens is a functional perspective. And my tools are lifestyle interventions. And this sounds wishy. When people say lifestyle, it's like, oh, that's great. La la la, it's fluff. Eat your broccoli. That's great. But no, we go into the science. We go into the details. We even talk about epigenetics, and we talk about genetic SNPs. We talk about trauma. I mean, it sounds like, willy-nilly, but we really work through a very organized, comprehensive program that takes us all the way from physiology to emotionality to even the spirituality of wellness, from community to right down to the individual, and from the old, very, very young babies, preconception, all the way to old age and death, dying, loss, all of that stuff. We also talk about advocacy. We talk about, being able to be your own best advocate. And the whole program is to teach practitioners, not just tell people what to do. We actually don't do that. We tell people what they can do, and we empower them to do that. So it's like a taking back. We teach our clients to take back their health, and that way we get better compliance, we get better outcomes, we get the people that come, work with our practitioners, they end up actually really getting better, not just like going on some kind of weight loss program that lasts for, a month or two and then going right back to bad habits. They actually it's a transformational for both the practitioners and then also for their clients once they come out. So we have weekly live trainings so when I say I like to be there and I like to teach, this is me. I don't have a bunch of people and a bunch of staff doing my work for me. I mean, I need help, this and that I don't need to be there for, but I'm there for live trainings every single week. It's a 6-month program, and it sounds daunting, but I could not get it smaller. It doesn't work because this is the basic framework. And I want people to come out of that program actually really knowing what they're doing, and having the basic framework. And what we do after that is we have advanced trainings. So we deepen our knowledge after we know that these things exist and we know where to find information about all this stuff. And then we do advanced trainings as our program grows and as everybody starts coming out and the graduates start graduating. there is a ton of stuff that we do that's in addition to the basic training. Our community is intimate. I keep every session down to 20 participants, like new ones. And our graduates are always welcome to be involved in our training, weekly trainings. And I have, monthly check-ins with those the graduates as well. But we do so my purpose in doing this is to build an army of caring practitioners, and with a holistic, a functional view of health, and that can help to elevate us from this new normal of chronic illness that we are seeing everywhere. So that's my goal in the program. So it's kick-ass, if you don't mind me saying so on a family show.
Not at all. And
it's fun. Yeah, so good.
No.
Yeah, so this is what we do in this program. Pretty exciting, and we're planning our second. Can I say the dates or anything?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So our next training. So our last trainees just finished just before Christmas, and many of them are starting their practicums. We have a practicum component. We have quizzes. And we have a final exam, and we have a few assignments. And so but it's really great. I just love to see what people come up with, and, what they teach each other as well. We have a Facebook group, where we meet, and I post things, and, all kinds of stuff in there. And so our next, are actually right now. So when this airs, we'll be, getting closer to the end of our, application process, but it's not too late at all. So just go ahead and check out the program and apply if you feel that it's calling you. And we start our first session on March 10th for this session. So our first live training is March 10th for this section.
Great, thanks for that. And while we finish up, you have a book coming out eventually too as well?
Yep. I know eventually is probably the word. Yes, it's called Family Health Revolution, and I'm editing it right now. So I'm trying to have that done actually probably around the same time. So March 15th is the release date for that book. And just so you know, when people are part of the practitioner training program, that they get actually not only this book, but they get a practitioner guide that's this book on steroids. So it's it adds in all these protocols and all kinds of things for the actual practitioners as a guide. So when they work with clients, they actually have a reference point so that, they're not flying blind all the time going, I can't remember this, where's this resource, all that stuff. So that's another thing that is in production as well. And I also have a diabetes weekend workshop that I run every once in a while for parents and for practitioners so that we can talk a lot more in depth about what I just basically touched on today. And I'm developing one for PANS AE, autoimmune encephalitis, and also more things like mental health and addictions and things like that, and just general chronic illness. And then the role of the CNS, the central nervous system, in healing. And I'm working on that with Dr. Sandy Gluckman. So there's lots of things coming down the pike.
Nice. Well, I expect a copy of the book when it's fully released, Carla.
You will? Maybe he'll come back on. We'll talk about this book.
You could do that for sure. So final two questions. What's your general rhythm from waking to sleeping every day?
Me, personally?
Yes.
Oh, I'm actually, you asked me the right question because I'm a good sleeper. You could ask me a lot of other things and I would be ashamed to tell you. But no, I had a couple of bad habits. I started checking into a Facebook group before I went to bed, which you never should do. But I have my phone on amber. I never have blue lights. You taught me that, by the way, 5 years ago, Noah.
There you go.
And I've never gone back to using blue lights on my computer. Never, never, never. I even have those crazy glasses, and they work beautifully. Honestly, as soon as you put on an amber glasses, your whole nervous system goes, thank you.
Yep.
But okay, so but I did get into this bad habit because I was checking in with a few people who were struggling, so, but normally I don't do any electronics. I actually try not to work I try to work, I sometimes will work after supper time, maybe not, but I try not to work after supper. I read before bed. Most of the time I try to meditate, but if I'm tired, I just conk out. but I don't have any trouble falling asleep because I stay far away from blue lights. And so I'm thinking, and I've been up a little late lately till about 11. Ideally, I would be in bed by 10 and then sleeping by about 10:30. And I try to read, but quite frankly, I don't read a lot. I just fall asleep. And then, and then morning, I'm up early. I'm like an early bird, blah, blah, blah. I'm annoying. I'm one of those annoying early bird people that likes the morning. So, and I don't drink coffee. So I think the sleep part has a lot to do with the energy that I have because I don't rely on any coffee or stimulants or anything. Oh, and at night, sometimes I'll have a really nice tea. And so in the morning, I probably get up, depending on the time of year, between 5 and 7. Like, depending. So sometimes I'm like feeling like I just want to be up and I'm good and I'm rested. And sometimes I'll get up a little later, like in the wintertime might be a little later, like 6:30. Yeah.
That's perfect. Yep. I loved it. Sleep is so important. I love to hear rhythms. And our audience continually appreciate. I ask that question now every guest for like the last probably year and a half for sure. Now, how can people get in touch with you? Carla? How can people get in touch with you?
Okay. Well, my website. Yeah, my website is healthyfamilyformula.com. Healthyfamilyformula.com. You can find everything there. You can use my contact form to get a hold of me. Most of my new blogs at the bottom of the blog will have a link to my scheduler, so people can just, if they want to meet and greet with me and I don't charge for anything like that. If people just want to say hello, well, can you help me with this or just talk about the programs, anything like that, click on there. So most of my new blogs at the bottom, they have that meet and greet, option. So just schedule in. And also at the top, the toolbar of my website, it'll say HFF practitioners. And if you want to know anything about that practitioner training program, or if you want to know how to apply and download an application package or an information package, it's totally easy to do. You just click on there and it's all there. So everything will be on my website. You can get a hold of me there. I also have a Facebook page called Healthy Family Formula. And I also run children's and teen health community. But I'm trying to move a lot of those people over to the Healthy Family Formula. So find those groups. The Children's and Teen Health Community is a group, and the Healthy Family Formula is a page. So a little bit different in functionality, but they're both really good resources. And I'm doing a lot more Facebook Lives. I just started. They're kind of I thought, ooh, Facebook Live is crazy. And so I've been doing these I'm starting a whole series of Facebook Lives on Healthy Family Formula on the Facebook page. So don't miss it because I have a lot of stuff to share.
Great. Thanks. I actually really enjoy Facebook Live, so I get it. So, well, thanks as always, Carla. I think this will be released February 25th. I appreciate your time. My name is Dr. Noah DeCoyer, your co-host, and you're listening to the Beyond Your Wildest Genes podcast. You can subscribe to our incredible weekly email at www.beyondyourwildestgenes.com. Don't forget to check out our newly released BYWG supplement line at our website as well. And thank you. And as my oldest son Hayden says, be awesome and never unawesome.